Good morning, YouTube world. Steam it world. Enjoying my caffeine-free Zevia. It's good stuff. Can't have too much stevia though in general. Makes my teeth feel a little funky, so just have one of these once in a while when I head to work. I already had my caffeine this morning, so I'm trying not to overdo it, right? Could have had another cup of coffee in here, but trying to be a little bit healthy. So, something that was on my mind is, I think a lot of people struggle with this, especially since the population as a whole has a greatly diminished critical thinking capacity because of the ADD world we live in, right? Where you got your smartphone and you just want like things right away. You want to just, feed this short-sighted part of our brain as fast as possible. And so what I was thinking about is, I'm on Netflix, and you can basically, I'm going to categorize this in the food industry, the food movement, healthy food movement versus big ag, and the fact that it's so hard out there today because there is a scientific or legitimate side of every single story. So as people who are not familiar with some basic principles to follow when it comes to healing themselves through diet and nutrition and supplementation, it can be really hard to weed through the BS. And you see this, I watched, so there's a movie on Netflix that's directed by Joaquin Phoenix, and I only made it in like 10 minutes of this movie because I'm just like, the whole thing was basically saying how refined sugar was not that bad, and it was the fats in meats that was bad, and that was actually the real cause of diabetes. And obviously, then you go to all different sides of the spectrum of, don't eat the sugar because the sugar's bad, the insulin spikes and blah, blah. So they're saying the fat blocks the cells, from absorbing the sugar, and then the sugar remains in the bloodstream, and then that's where the issue arises. And I see partially where they're getting at, but to diminish sugar's role is, in my opinion, completely asinine. It's ridiculous. And what are the fats that you're comparing? So we compartmentalize things in generalizations and say that they all apply. Like, so fats, for example. Fats are bad. If someone thinks fats aren't good for you, they generalize fats in one big realm. Like all fats coming from meat protein, they generalize into they're not good for you, they need to be consumed very minimally. Or somebody generalizes all sugars, they're bad for you, they need to be eaten very minimally, or whatever it might be. Or all, we can just, you can go, those are generally the two warfare topics when it comes to health and nutrition, are the fats versus the sugars, or vice versa. But here's the truth. Fats are not all created equal. First, you have the first tier of fats, differentiation between fats that are coming from avocados and nuts and wild salmon, and then you have fats where the cow down at the commercial feedlot that is just standing in his own fecal matter all day, chewing on a variety of barley and wheat, is gonna have a terrible fat complex compared to the Joel Salatin style cow that is not given any grain, that is on a multi-speciated pasture of 12 to 15 different kinds of salad bar, right, where it can get all these different micronutrients from all these different pieces of vegetation, and on top of that, he's, mob stock grazing, which means he's not picking out the sweets that he wants, the really flavorful grasses. He's wiping it all out because, they're creating that herd mentality like they do over at Joel Salatin's Polyface Farm. So his beef, the fat complex in his beef, is extraordinarily beneficial It's extraordinarily recognizable by your digestive system, and it's got a complex array of nutrients that your body recognizes and craves. So, you know, it's same with his chickens, same principle with his chickens. So we're talking about brain food, we're talking about foods that are traditionally thought to be cholesterol, you know, bad cholesterol inhibiting, or not inhibiting, but bad cholesterol raising in your body from these foods, now become good cholesterol building, blocking out negative cholesterol, opposed to the exact same animal that's raised incorrectly. You know, when you're talking about poultry, eggs, beef, pork. So all these things, you look at the pork that's raised correctly, it's almost a red, it's almost a beef color, opposed to the commercial pork, which is like this pale, bland white. The fat complexes on a you know, if you're looking at from a scientific matter in a lab, completely and utterly different. The effects on your health, completely different, polar opposites. So again, you have this misinformation out there because people with their PhDs want to generalize a category of food and then push their perspective, whether it's just a general perspective of theirs or whether it's a perspective that has an agenda behind it, into the minds of people that don't know any better. And these people are probably overwhelmed by the information as it is, so their ability to critically think and step back and look at it and go, or willingness or capability or know-how to gather the important resources and information to create a more well-rounded conclusion based upon a full spectrum of information, rather than say, well, he's a doctor. Let me tell you, doctors, there's just as many idiot doctors out there as you compare it to any other field of work, you know, I mean professional field of work, okay? You know, there's accountants that are accountants and they got their CPA and they do their thing and they're not very good at doing the books, you know. You might have another accountant which works at an large law firm for corporations, and they're outstanding. They can find every tax loophole and every rebate and every, you know, whatever. They're great. They know the book inside and out. Their ability to critically think through the financial process, through their client-specific needs, and maximize, the tax incentives for that client. So, you know, just because someone's got a label of professional doesn't mean shit until they've proven themselves above their colleagues. Okay. And I'm not trying to diminish, I'm not trying to diminish doctors. We love doctors, thank God for doctors. But my point just being, just like anything else, they're not all created equal, even those that get airtime. They have been taught through blinders, just like most fields of work. And unless they have that inherent ability to critically think outside the box, they're going to stay on that path that they've taught on, because that's what they know. We all gravitate towards path of least resistance naturally, and sometimes the path of least resistance doesn't mean not solving difficult problems, but it means solving those problems through a method in which we're most familiar with, which could be the wrong method. And so we go back to sugars, right? When I was doing powerlifting and stuff a lot back in my early 20s, I always had like the muscular development magazines and Flex magazine, read all these scientific articles that were in the back. And we used to drive me nuts. Well, I didn't know any better back then, but I started to learn. When people would compare consuming an apple to the same as sugar from a candy bar. So again, there's a generalization about sugar. Refined sugar is molecularly different than sugar found in natural products like fruit, whatever that fruit might be. It's, even though like an apple would be classified as a simple sugar, it is still far more complex than a refined sugar. Refined sugar is like cocaine. It hits you, instantly is absorbed, you know, within minutes, absorbed in its entirety into the bloodstream, because your body doesn't have to do any processes to break it down. Even though apple, banana, whatever, orange is still considered simple sugars, there is still more steps to your body being able to break it down and absorb it. And not to mention, it's fully recognizable by your body, opposed to like a drug that is just, it hits your body, it's absorbed immediately, and they're like, it doesn't have to go through that natural biological process in your digestive system that sugars from fruits do. So you cannot say the refined sugar in a Snickers bar is the same as banana and apple, because your body doesn't think so, and your diabetes doesn't think so, and so on and so forth. So again, there's a generalization now, and also that apple on a nutrient level could be completely different from the organic raised heritage style apple compared to the big farm commercial fertilizer. Just basically it's a look-alike, it's a clone apple. It's supposed to look like it's an apple, but it really doesn't have the nutrient complexity of what an apple should. So you have apples that are now 40 times less nutrient dense. Take the Washington Reds, for example. They have hardly any nutrient value to them anymore, opposed to the apple tree that was growing in your grandfather's backyard on his homestead or something, right? So again, you can go further and further and further down the truth rabbit hole when it comes to talking about food and the nutrient complexity and density of your food, even if it's called the exact same thing. Red Delicious to Red Delicious doesn't mean they're the same thing at all. All right, so they have the seed that makes them look like a Red Delicious at the end of the day, but it's how that seed is fed that allows for it to actually have a real nutrient complex value to you. So it was just annoying. And then you've got Cowspiracy on there, and then you got stuff like Food Inc., where you've got Joel Salatin in Food Inc. and Omnivore's Dilemma, a book by Michael, Jesus, you guys know what I'm talking about. He's Michael Pollan. Probably getting that wrong. It's Michael P. I forgot exactly what his last name is. But my point being, you got the vegetarians saying, well, we all need to eat vegetarian because the animals are killing the planet. The beef cows are killing the planet with all their toxic sludge and runoff. Well, that's not the damn cow's fault. Go to Joel Salatin's farm again, and those who are replicating Joel Salatin's model. His management process is soil building, nutrient building, and eliminates carbon. It sequesters carbon out of the atmosphere and stores it back into the soil where it's supposed to be, opposed to the feedlot that's raising the same thing, called a cow, in a way in which is detrimental to the environmental systems. So again, we're blaming something so we don't have to blame ourselves for the bullshit we put up with. It is the management, it is the human fault, it's the human error, it's the human's need for greed to process these things, get them in and out as cheaply and as fat as possible so that they can make a profit. They don't care about the detrimental of it. And then when there's an issue, when there's an outcry, it turns into the cow's fault. It's complete nonsense. And you as a consumer needs to start understanding the differences here and having some critical thought processes, and you need to step back and go, well, considering there were 10 times the amount of herbivores in North America 500 years ago, and it was the most lush, fertile, amazing, biodiverse land possibly in the entire world, yet we had 100 to 200, maybe more million buffalo, 1 million or 2 wolves, millions and millions of elk, millions and millions of deer, caribou, black bear, beavers, you name it. Go through the gamut. The birds were just probably 50 to 60, no, more than that. I mean, you're talking about like passenger pigeons and stuff like that. I mean, you're talking about several thousand times more birds than we do now. And yet somehow it's the animal's fault. No, it's the management's fault. So you either look yourself in the mirror as a consumer and say, I got to change my priorities and how I come at this and who I support in the agricultural industry. Or if you're a producer, say, I need to change my ways because what I'm doing isn't working. I have to continue to buy chemical fertilizers, blanket my field in pesticides and herbicides and fungicides, and basically grow artificial lookalikes, and it's destroying my soil, it's destroying the water that's next to me, it's destroying the air. So again, it's up to us, you know, to do these things and educate ourselves and treat it right and stop blaming the animal. It's just so absurd. When in doubt, we blame somebody else. We put the blame out there because very few people are willing to look at themselves in the mirror and take responsibility. And it's getting pretty old, and it's getting to the point where, you know, our ecological systems aren't going to accept it anymore. They're going to fail us. And our health is failing us because we're depending on commercial, artificial growth and development in the agricultural industry, which isn't allowing our bodies to have 1/10 of the nutrients that we need to fight off disease, fight off, you know, cancers, heart disease, diabetes, you name it, autoimmune disorders, autism, ADHD, an array of allergies. So it's up to us to kind of switch what we're doing. That's going to be my rant for the morning. I'm going to try to do another one. I've really been slacking. I apologize. I need to get these videos pumping out. But that was bothering me this morning, so I wanted to cover it. Y'all have a good day.